welcome to another episode of Entrepreneur Mind Speak. My name is Lauren. I'm founder and creative director for Creme de Mint Design, a branding and packaging design agency in Miami Beach, Florida. And I'm here with my co-host.
Hi, my name is Natalie. I'm founder of Cloud Create. We are a web development and design agency based in Tampa, Florida.
And today we're going to talk about burnout and how to avoid burnout as an entrepreneur. This is so huge. We have so much going on. There's so many things that we have to do, and it's exhausting. It's exhausting sometimes, and we can push ourselves to the edge and we can end up burning out and not being able to run our businesses. And we can't do that because there's only one of us. And until we get our business to a really good place where someone else can take over, we have to make sure that we manage that at each point in time. So one of the things that we always have to remember is that entrepreneurship is a marathon and not a sprint. Getting into that mindset from the get-go, like knowing that you're going to be doing this for a long period of time, you need to kind of really think about, strategize how you're going to not get burned out.
Yeah, and be realistic on the targets that you set for yourself. As I know, when I first started my business, I was so naive in a way. I was just like, okay, cool. So I'm going to hit these revenue goals and, all of these various different targets. I'm going to hit it all in the next, 3 months, first quarter that I'm in business. This is what I'm going to do. And I feel like social media, with all of these ads and things that you get of they make it seem like social media kind of in general makes it seem that everything you can achieve really fast. They're like, oh yeah, I made a business and 3 months later I was making 100 grand a month or whatever. It makes it seem like these are normal occurrences when in reality, building a real business that's based on great client relationships, great products, a business that you can be really proud of, it does take time. And of course, some people might be faster than others, but especially if you're in business for the first time, there's so much to learn and you don't want to neglect the fact that that's going to take time too. So setting realistic goals for yourself. I wish that I had done that better in the beginning because I really stressed myself out with my own pressure on myself. And why was I not immediately, a millionaire in 60 days, like all these social media personalities were telling me that I should be?
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, there is no such thing as an overnight success. All of the people that you see online that have been super successful, we have to look at all of everything that it took to get to where they are now. And
Yeah.
usually that means they've had a bunch of failures before they had their overnight success. So I think that going in with that right mindset and establishing the right expectations for yourself, it's critical to avoiding burnout.
Yeah, totally. And overstressing yourself and even feeling like you have that, the target list that you have every day that never goes down, because you set such high expectations of yourself. All of that doesn't help with the long-term vision that you're setting for yourself when you really look at your business as being something that you want to have for the next 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is when you're making your list, think about what are the top 3 things I want to get done today? And everything
Yeah.
else is a bonus, but really simplify it and say, okay, these are the 3 things that need to be done today. And the other things I could do a different day. If I get these other things, fantastic. That's how I do my list. I think that really helps. Now, of course, you're like, well, I have all these things I have to do, but really, do you have to? You really have
Right.
to ask yourself, do you really have to get all those things done today? Can some of them be done tomorrow?
Totally. I think people are pressed to try and expect so much from themselves,
Yeah.
it makes it hard, but you really have to take a step back and not compare yourself to anyone else, just with your own ability, with the time that you have, with the attention that you have. What is a realistic goal for yourself to be able to have?
The best thing to do is to do everything in small steps. The big picture can be a bit overwhelming, but if you do small steps every single day, then that will add up to something really, really big.
Totally.
So one of the
Totally.
things I think about is, I wanted to start writing, I wanted to have more blog posts, and I wanted to have more blog posts because I knew that it was good for SEO. And that is like a long-term strategy. It takes a really long time to
Yeah.
build your SEO organically and to jump up in the ranks so that people start finding you that way.
Yeah.
So I decided, okay, I'm going to do 2 posts per month. That is the goal. Okay, 2 posts per month. And, there's other people that say, oh, you should do 4, or oh, you should do this, or you should do that. And I'm like, no, I can do 2. So I would
Hmm.
do 2 posts per month. And I did that for like several years. And because of doing that, now, like years later, like that's how people find me. People started finding me
Yeah.
organically because of that one small decision that I made, which was to be consistent and do this one little small task every single month. It's important to think, okay, let's choose one current project that you feel stuck on, break it down into like smaller tasks, and then put each small task in your calendar and make sure that you have enough time to get them done and really break it out over a long period of time, and that will help you manage these really large goals that you have.
I would love to hear more about your own experience, because I feel like you've been applying this a lot in the last couple months, I guess, because you went through some crazy stressful things. And then you really had to apply what you know in regards to making sure that you don't burn out, and taking care of yourself, and having some time for self-reflection, and taking the steps that you know that you need despite everything else going on around you.
It's funny because when I hear you pose that question to me, I'm like, what did I do? I don't even know what I did, because it really, in the middle of it, just felt so overwhelming. And I did feel like there were definite moments where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so burned out. I just can't function today. And there were days where I said, you know what? Today, I'm not going to. I am going
Yeah.
to take some time off. I'm going to do the bare minimum, and I'm just going to rest. I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to do things that feel good for my mind and my body. And sometimes that meant reading a book or just spending the entire day not doing my business.
I love my business and I get obsessive about it. Like it's not even like, oh, I have to work on my business. I'm like, I must work on my business all the time. And then
Yeah.
I get like, God forbid something good happens. Then I get even more obsessive, even if technically, theoretically, it's like, oh, good, like something good happened. Let's go celebrate and like do something fun. No, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to work even harder. And that can be very dangerous as an entrepreneur. You have to be like, whoa, okay, cool. I just noticed that I worked X amount of hours. That's kind of a lot. Maybe I need to take a step back and like give my body a rest, give my mind a rest, do something else, go outside, not for a 10-minute walk with my dog, but like for a day, really decompress. And that sounds like that's what you were applying, which is it's really important to be able to catch yourself in that, because a lot of people, including myself, have definitely struggled with that. I need to like slow down, put attention on something else, rest, recover a little bit, and then jump back into it.
I can't say that I'm perfect at doing this. I'm definitely not. I do think it is important to take legitimate breaks.
Whatever is your thing that you're like, okay, this will actually get me out of that day-to-day grind and make me see that there's something else in the world, and, kind of reprioritize everything for a minute, I think is so important. Like everyone can learn from that.
One of the things that I did is I said, okay, let me plug myself into this other community and see what resources they have. Let me join a co-working space in a different place and just have different experiences and be surrounded by different people with new ideas. And it's been really refreshing to meet a whole bunch of other people and to learn about things that I didn't know about. So
Yeah.
that, I mean, I think just changing where you are, the places that you normally are going to, um, the space around you can also change how you are working on your business, how you're perceiving things. I think that even if you don't travel to a totally different city, you could just say, okay, like I'm going to shake up my routine. I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to do something different.
Getting out of my own environment has always been a really good help for me in that regard. Is like when you are, doing, whether you have a job or a business. Obviously right now I'm having a business, so I'm relating it to that, but the same thing applies when you have a job that you're doing every day, and you have big problems and smaller problems in regards to that job or that business. So I'm like, okay, cool. What are the bigger problems I need to handle? But then like sometimes the small problems start looking like big problems when that's all you're doing. So your whole life is your business. You have these big problems that you're solving, and then like, oh, here's a little problem, but it kind of like looks just like a big problem. So now you're putting all this energy into solving all of these different things in regards to your business. And it really, for me, takes stepping back and like taking a little trip. Even for me, even if I go, like I live right outside of Tampa, if I go to Orlando for a weekend, which is only a couple hours away, and I just like rent a hotel for a night, be out there, relax, whatever, it really helps me kind of remind me of different things in life, like my family, because usually I'll visit my family, or I'll spend time more with my husband, or I'll take my dog and we'll go do fun things with the dog. The problems that looked really big in your business, they kind of look a little bit smaller. Like the big ones might still be there, but the little problems are kind of like, who really cares? Like it doesn't matter that much. It really helps reorient myself to like what I find important in life, and where are the pain points and the trouble points in my life that I want to solve, and what is just random little things that I actually don't care that much about.
Yeah, so it sounds like it really gives you perspective. Then you're able to like sit back and be like, okay, this is important, this is not important.
Yeah.
Really, it helps you to prioritize by giving your mind some downtime. One of the biggest complaints I hear entrepreneurs say is that they're always working. And
Yeah.
we really need to, when we say we're going to take time off, we really need to stick to it and
Yeah.
and define those boundaries. And I know that I struggle with that sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, okay, I'm taking today off, and then somebody messages me about work, and I'm like, okay, let me jump on that. And it's like, no, like today is a day off and I need to not respond. It's really important to create that separation between work and personal life in order to avoid burnout. For myself, I struggle with it, but that boundary it's very important. And I've seen people that set very clear boundaries, like I'm only going to answer email during this time, and they actually send that out to people, or they have an auto reply that says I respond at this time and at this time. So it creates that predictability for other people. It feels a little tricky sometimes because you want to make sure that you're always responsive to your clients or your customers. At the same time, if you can't take care of yourself, then you're not going to be able to do business long term, because you're going to get burned out. It's so hard as an entrepreneur to say, okay, I'm really done with work now. And I'm not going to do this anymore. And I think when you're first starting out, like you just tend to blend it all in. That's how I was, at least. And
Totally.
as I've been in business for longer, I actually find my mind just saying, yeah, I'm not up for this. Like I actually shut down, like I mentally shut down, because I'm like, no, I don't have the bandwidth to do this now. I need a break.
And for me, one thing that was kind of shocking and I didn't really see coming was that like physically, like you have a mental burnout that you kind of get from just handling too much or too long. I think everybody's familiar with that mental burnout feeling. Recently, I was kind of surprised because I didn't feel mentally burned out at all. As a matter of fact, like I did feel a little stressed because I had like a lot of bigger projects at the same time, and I was making sure to get all of my deadlines done and like organizing everything. I felt very good about it all. So mentally, I was actually in a really great place, but I still worked more than normal for about 6 weeks in a row. honestly, I was so excited about working on my business that I just didn't stop. Every day I found myself working until like 10 or 11 p.m. From the morning. And I loved it. Like I genuinely was like in kind of like a workaholic phase where I was like not even wanting to do anything else. But then all of a sudden, my body, after sitting for what is that, like 14 hours a day or something like that, was just like, okay, cool. Now your back's going to go out. And so then the other day I woke up and I had to like take a day and like go see the chiropractor, do a bunch of stretching, figure out my schedule so I can add in now exercise because I just like barely exercised for over a month, take an Epsom salt bath, put ice on my back, like I had to have like a full on self-care day. And it was a real wake up call for me. And I just had to like really check myself. And now I go to see the chiropractor, not after my back is dying, but like if I notice that I'm a little bit tight, maybe she can help me sooner, and kind of just like put in these little physical aspects too. Do stretching before and after I have like long work sessions, these little things to help me not have that again, because that wasn't fun, waking up in the morning and you feel like you just want to be in bed all day because your back is hurting so badly.
I heard you saying like, oh, now I'm going to try to do it before it gets bad. And I've also been trying to do that too, where I'm like, oh, I'm noticing this. That means I need to take time for myself. The other thing that I was thinking about was that, it's really good to do little breaks between tasks.
Mm-hmm.
So like taking like setting your alarm and say, okay, I'm going to take a break, at this time and this time. I mean, our phones and our watches, some of them tell us to take a movement break, but we really need to think about those things because our bodies are not meant to sit in chairs all day. And in fact, there was something that I read that said that sitting is the new smoking, that
Oh
it's
my
so unhealthy for us to be sitting the amount that we're sitting, and that it's very unhealthy. So we need to take these stretch breaks, these little walk breaks, taking not just physical breaks, but taking like brain breaks.
Yeah.
So one of the brain breaks I like to do, and you have to be careful how much time you spend on Instagram, but I actually have like a bunch of like comedy people that like stand-up comics that I follow. And so when I need a little bit
Oh,
of a brain break and I need something to laugh about, like I'll go and I'll watch like a few minutes of stand-up comedy. And that just like takes my mind to a different place. It relaxes me. It makes me laugh. So taking
totally.
those little breaks, whatever that looks like for you.
For me, it's hanging out with my dog. Like I'll just like
Yes.
grab him and I'll make him play with me. And I'll just like cuddle with him for like 15 minutes or whatever, and then go out for a walk. Like that really helps.
And just kind of going in that same direction, having a support network, I think is really important. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that, your dog could be part of your support network. There's a bunch of different ways that you could have support in your business, like whether it's, being part of a co-working space where there's other people. Like I'm part of a co-working space called Hera Hub, and it focuses on helping women in business. So they have like ways that they support you through different videos, through
Cool.
they have this other thing called gurus where you can meet with people who specialize in certain areas and they can give you free advice and stuff like that. So finding your support, I think, is really helpful to avoid burnout. And I feel like in my business, there was a point in time where I was feeling really burned out doing the business as a solopreneur. I was thinking like, well, how can I continue doing this if I'm just so burned out? And so I started bringing in freelancers to help me with specific tasks so that I wasn't having to do everything myself. I had someone there to support me and take certain things off my plate and really like help me to see, okay, like what are the things I'm really good at and what are the things that I can actually give to other people that are
Yeah.
better at it than me. It all works out for everybody.
Totally. That's that like expansion that allows you to actually put in more order. So you're not just doing every possible hat in your business.
Right, exactly. Because like we're not all good at everything. There are
Right.
things that other people are better at than we are. And, if we can, if each person focuses on what they're most talented at, and you have multiple people as part of your team that are really good at the things that they do, then it just makes your business thrive even more. And even having people to like bounce ideas off of. For example, you and I were we work together, but we're also business owners. Each of us are business owners, and we can bounce ideas off each other. We can help guide each other when we're feeling a bit overwhelmed.
Regardless of what you're doing in life, to have people around you that can actually understand your problems because of similar experiences that they've had or that they can relate to, at least, like that in itself is really huge. Create like a little network that way. So like when I run into something and I'm just like, oh, I need to tell Lauren, and then you're like, oh my gosh, and you say something supportive, like just that is like amazing to be able to do, and is such a load off because you don't feel like you're going through life all by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is another thing that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, is feeling like it's kind of a lonely path. I've heard that from so many people, and I think that now more than ever there's people out there that can support you and can, really, like, they've been there too, and it's really helpful to talk to other people that have been through similar experiences,
Yeah.
and brainstorm like how to handle it, like what to do. You do have to give yourself rest. The most creative ideas come from when you're resting. So, like, for example, when I'm struggling with how to solve a problem, if I like write it down and I start to fall asleep, sometimes when you're just about to fall asleep, you think of the answer. Your brain needs time to rest and relax for it to be
Yeah.
creative and for it to really see the full picture, and give perspective, like we were talking about earlier. So don't be afraid to take time off and to truly rest, and don't feel guilty about it. See it as one of the building blocks for your business is that you need to take rest. There is a movement of people in society in general. I think the Gen Zs that are really taking rest to a whole other level of this idea of slow living and slow working and just really slowing down. And I think there's definitely something to be learned from that and from taking time for yourself.
What's funny is that like the slow living thing, when I was growing up in the Netherlands, I feel like what they are describing as slow living, it reminded me a lot of like just how people behaved when I was growing up. Like there didn't seem to be a lot of stress in the world, at least in my corner of the world at that time. Granted, I was young, so you perceive things differently then, but even based on what my parents told me, like it seems like life was a lot slower. They didn't have internet everywhere. They didn't have smartphones. They had, when you wanted to talk to someone, you had to either dial them and hope they were near a phone or just go see them. Like everything was automatically slower because of not having, social media and our phones on us all the time and stuff. I think there's something to be said for that. And whatever people need to do to accomplish that, whether that's like turning off their phones at certain times or having airplane mode on, or just kind of checking themselves as they're going through life to kind of like slow down and remind themselves of their priorities, like you were saying. I think it's an important thing to look at.
Society was different. I definitely agree with you. When I grew up, like, it was a different pace than it is now. It does feel like it has sped up. And I've been looking in my own business and in my own life, like, how can I slow things down? And part of that is I get rid of things that I don't need. All the emails that come in that are not important, they get put into another folder. I can truly just focus on what's important, and I have less decisions to make. I have less noise. And so I'm giving myself a break by focusing on less. If there's a way to do that in your own life, you'll have more spaciousness if you prioritize and say, okay, I'm not going to do these things.
We can give advice on how to not burn out, because we've been we've been on the brink of burnout many times across building a business. And I won't guarantee that other people won't. Like everybody has to find their limits somehow, but definitely keeping these things in mind and kind of taking note of them all. And remembering that it's okay to be slower and probably a lot more beneficial for your long-term growth, to not try and totally overexhaust yourself in order to get your goals done.
Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpack and a lot to learn about ourselves in general, because our society pushes us towards being so productive and
Yes.
like, okay, was I productive enough? Was I productive enough? Like I hear that constantly from people, and I hear it from myself. Like, did I get everything done on my list? Am I doing all the things I need to do? So because we have this society pushing us as a whole to be more productive, to do more, to almost be like robots, we have to also say, hey, is this good for me? Is this healthy for me? Or is this having a negative impact on our health? Like, am I having all sorts of physical ailments because of, the way that I'm pushing myself and the way I'm not giving myself enough self-care, enough of a break, and really feeding our mind and our bodies like what it needs to thrive. Any of the folks that are watching this or listening to this, we love to hear if you have any other tips to not burn out in your business. We'd love to hear them. So you can, comment or send us an email. And until then, that's the end of our episode.
Yes.
We'll see you on our next episode of Entrepreneur Mind Speak. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye.